Hey, story lovies. Welcome to Black My Story Time, where every tale beats with truth, drama, and power. Let's get into it. Episode 4. Who was this woman? Julia froze for a moment, breathing hard. That's when she heard it. The faint curl in Melanie's words. An accent. She wasn't even Jamaican. The realization made Julia's blood boil. How dare this woman? Coming into her town, standing in her store, trying to belittle her. And she wasn't even from here. Her fists clenched again. The humiliation burned in her chest. With that, Julia lost it. Her hand moved before her mind could stop it. The sharp crack of a slap echoed through the boutique. Melanie's head snapped to the side. She didn't look surprised. She simply held her cheek, absorbing the sting. And then, she laughed. That sound made Julia's rage explode. She slapped her again, harder this time. But Melanie didn't fight back. She just stood there, eyes steady. "Is that all you've got?" Melanie taunted, her tone mocking. "Mrs. Cooper, if you are fighting for your man, you have to come harder than that." Julia let out a strangled scream and shoved her. "You bitch! You effing bitch! You think you can come into my world and do as you please?" Melanie stumbled backward into a display of high-end summer dresses. The shelf rattled as she hit it, knocking a few hangers loose. She fell hard, her lips splitting against the edge. The entire store froze. All eyes darted between Melanie, tangled awkwardly in the summer dress she was trying to wriggle out of, and Julia, the woman who had finally broken form. Gone was the pristine, always composed Mrs. Cooper. In her place stood a woman stripped of poise, trembling with fury, her perfect image cracking right there under the boutique's bright lights. Outside, a small crowd began to gather at the front display window. Phones lifted like weapons, eager to capture every salacious second. Faces pressed against the glass, breath fogging up the panes, as whispers rippled through the street. The town had been waiting for this. Julia Cooper, finally unraveling in public. Before Melanie could get her balance, Julia was on top her again, slapping her over and over while she screamed. The staff scrambled to intervene. Deborah grabbed Julia around the waist, pulling her back as she screamed. "Here's my husband. You can't have him, you bitch." The tears were rolling down her eyes as she screamed. What kind of woman does that? What kind of woman openly cheats like this? A few of the other staffers ran over to help Melanie as she rose slowly, one hand pressed to her lip. Blood glistened against her skin, her reflection catching in the mirror nearby. Her face was red, her lip cut, her arms bruised. But her expression was calm, almost amused. She sighed softly, then gave a small, bitter laugh. Julia was held back as she screamed. "Leave my husband alone. Leave this town and go back to whatever low-life rock you crawl from under, you vulture." "Well, damn, Mrs. Cooper," she said, her voice low but cutting. "You hit harder than the man you sent after me. Guess he didn't tell you he had his ass whooped by a woman." Melanie laughed as she rubbed her finger against her cut lip. She leaned it so only Julia could hear her. "That's it, Mrs. Cooper. It's always good to fight or protect what you think is yours. Except it's so clear to both of us that he is no longer yours, right, Mrs. Cooper?" Melaine said in a mocking tone. "You are a despicable low-life. You have no shame." Julia huffed. "Why should I, Mrs. Cooper? Years ago, you didn't." Melanie shrugged. Julia struggled against the attendant's grip, her fury still burning, until Melanie's words cut through the chaos. "Years ago, you didn't." Julia froze. What did she mean by that? Did she know? the sudden uncertainty tangled with her anger, chilling it into confusion. As Julia stood stunned, the attendant used the moment to guide her toward the back of the store. But her mind wasn't in the present anymore. It was spinning, digging through memories, searching for answers. Who was this woman? Where was she from? Something in Melanie's voice, that quiet confidence, that knowing tone, unsettled her more than the slap, more than the humiliation. When Julia glanced back, she caught the faint curl of a smirk forming on Melanie's lips, and fear slipped into her heart. What did she know about her past? Melanie straightened herself, then began walking toward the back of the store. One of the attendants instinctively stepped forward to block her path in an effort to keep the two women separate. But Melanie shot him a look, cold and sharp, that made him freeze on the spot. No one knew what to do. In one corner stood Mrs. Cooper, the woman they'd all known for years. Rude, condescending, the woman who lived up on the hill overlooking the whole town. The one no one dared to cross because of her alliances and her husband's reach. And in the other corner, his new woman. And so the staff stood frozen, unsure which woman to defend. The queen, who once ruled the hill, or the new mistress who had clearly taken her throne. Melanie had been around for months now, longer than any of the fleeting women who came and went. She carried herself differently. And Marcus, well, Marcus smiled with her, laughed, took her places. The great Marcus Cooper, seen in public, joking, doting. That had never happened before. This one was different. She was special. Melanie walked slowly toward Julia, who now sat in the back of the store, her head bowed, her mind unraveling as she tried to piece together who this woman really was. Tears slid freely down her cheeks. This wasn't how it was supposed to end. Not with her feeling utterly defeated by a side piece. Melanie sat on the couch beside her, and Julia stiffened. "Don't worry, Mrs. Cooper," Melanie said lightly, dabbing her lip with her thumb. "I should be the one afraid of you. I mean, look at me." She held out her hand, showing Julia the damage she'd done. Julia lifted her head, eyes glassy. "What do you want from me?" Her voice was small, trembling. Melanie looked at her, feigning shock. "What do I want from you?" she said, her tone dripping with mock innocence. "I should be asking you that question. Weren't you the one who came barging in here all high and mighty?" Julia's eyes narrowed. "Don't play dumb with me, little witch." Melanie's lips curved into a playful smile. "All right, fine," she said, as if giving in to Julia's demands. "That's a good question, Mrs. Cooper. What do I want from you?" She leaned in slightly, voice lowering. "Maybe you should start thinking back. Way back." Something in her tone froze Julia. The air seemed to thicken around her as the realization struck. Melanie. She was her 20 years ago. The confident smirk, the recklessness, the hunger. The memories surged up unbidden, crashing through the fragile dam she'd built over the years. She shook her head violently, as if trying to shake them loose. But then another thought hit her. She's too young to know. Melanie couldn't have known those things. She looked barely 20. Melanie leaned in, her voice a low whisper. "I can see it's all coming back, isn't it, Mrs. Cooper?" Meanwhile, across town in Lonbridge, Marcus Cooper strode through one of his newest real estate projects. His trusted security chief and longtime enforcer, James, a few steps behind. He had to admit, it was coming along nicely. Just 2 miles up the hill from his mansion, the steel frame of his newest venture was rising into the sky. A 50-room, all-inclusive luxury resort. The plan was bold. Sleek modern suites, private villas tucked into the hillside, and panoramic views of the endless blue ocean. To the opposite side, the hills climbed in deep, lush shades of green, dotted with palm trees, swaying lazily in the warm breeze. He was building a tropical haven, one designed to impress. At the center of it all sat a polished helipad, ready for scenic island tours or quick pickups and drop-offs. And soon, a state-of-the-art gondola lift would glide guests down the hillside, almost placing them right on the beach and in the heart of the tourist shopping district within minutes. It was ambitious. It was power. And for Marcus Cooper, this wasn't just a resort. It was legacy. He was shaping the town in his image. For 35 years, he had been both the architect and the arbiter of Lonsbridge. To most, Marcus was the man with the easy smile and the firm handshake, the one who sponsored town fairs, built schools, and made sure everyone had work. He cared for his people. Or at least, that's how it seemed. But beneath that warm, polished surface lay something else. A side that no one could ever quite prove, yet everyone whispered about. Enough rumor to seed fear. A quiet, enduring kind that made people think twice before crossing him. He liked his town that way. Happy, productive, and obedient. He ran a tight ship, and as long as everyone played by his rules, life in Lonsbridge was good. But for those who didn't, well, some families were still searching for the ones who dared to oppose him. The hum of construction filled the air. Hammers, drills, and shouted orders. Marcus stopped to exchange a few words with the foreman when his assistant Jennifer approached, her steps hesitant. "Excuse me, sir," she said quietly, glancing at James before lowering her voice. "There's something you need to see." Jennifer liked working for Marcus. It meant stability, protection from the chaos that came with working for powerful men. She knew his reputation, knew how ruthless he could be when pushed. Few ever saw that side of him, but James had. He was Marcus's hammer, the man who drove every nail into place without his boss ever getting his hands dirty. Marcus smiled faintly. "What is it, Jennifer?" Jennifer liked working for Marcus. It meant stability, protection from the chaos that came with working for powerful men. She knew his reputation, knew how ruthless he could be when pushed. Few ever saw that side of him, but James had. He was Marcus's hammer, the man who drove every nail into place without his boss ever getting his hands dirty. Marcus smiled faintly. "What is it, Jennifer?" She opened her phone, pressed play, and handed it to him. His expression hardened as the color drained from his face. There, on the screen, the two women in his life, Julia and Melanie, were locked in a public brawl. He was furious. What could have happened to have these two women fighting like this? He closed his eyes and rubbed his forehead. He has been running this town for over 35 years, and never had any of these women had the audacity to publicly embarrass him like this. He knew who started it, though, and he was going to fix that. He passed the phone to James, his jaw tightening. "Get in touch with your people and find out who took those videos," he said in a low, icy tone. "And get them deleted. All of them. Now." James nodded as he grabbed his phone from his pants pocket and walked a few steps away. A few minutes later, Marcus wrapped up his meeting and was on his way to the upscale boutique where his two women had made a scene. Thank you for joining me, my story lovies. Remember, every voice matters and every story has power. If you love good drama and Caribbean stories, don't just watch. Join the family. Hit subscribe. Thanks again for watching. And stay tuned for the next intriguing episode of When the Crown Falls.